Hello, everybody, and welcome to Roundtable Podcast Live for today, August 26, 2016. I am joined by my friends Ryan, Nick, and our guest this week, Malf. What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome to Roundtable. I'm running it this week. Bear's off on a road trip, I guess, so if the stream crashes, we lose frames or whatever, it's to be expected at this point. But yeah, welcome to Roundtable, and we're relatively on time, so I'm happy about that. Thanks for joining us, Malf. How's things, man?
Oh, we be good. I'm looking forward to a weekend full of rimworlding and, not much else.
So you haven't changed?
No, you guys do?
Shirt?
Huh?
Where'd you get that shirt?
Europe.
Okay. Sorry I asked.
It's Fred Perry, but I got it while I was in Amsterdam.
Okay. This is a nice shirt.
Yeah,
Amsterdam looks good.
Nice and salmon-colored.
They probably have Fred Perry over in Vancouver.
That's good, so I know what to avoid
Oh!
if I don't want to look like a dork.
My mom thinks I'm cool.
God. Oh, well, before we talk Malf any longer, to go about the topics real quick, since we don't have a proper docket in chat, because we don't have access to that. Hopefully that'll be fixed next time. The docket right now is to talk about Allison Road is officially back in development. No Man's Sky users go down 90% by week 2. SteamSpy no longer taking dev requests. Dark Souls 3 DLC has been announced with a trailer. Endless Legend is getting an expansion. Nick finishes AM2R, N++, and then wrapping it up with Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. Mankind Divided. That works. Which has been pretty fun. But let's just jump right into it with Allison Road. So Allison Road, if you don't know, for those who are not aware, was a PT-like, I guess, inspired horror game by a little studio that was eventually kickstarted. And then they canceled the Kickstarter when Team 17 ended up picking them up to be their publishers. In June, they tweeted that the game was being canceled with a relatively vague Facebook post about 2 or 3 weeks later saying it just wasn't meant to be. And now he's saying he's going to continue developing it as a single developer, as one dude, and no longer, I guess, attached to Team 17's publishing name, which is strange, but I guess exciting because it looked promising. What are your thoughts on it before I decide to dive into what I think about this whole situation? Take the floor, gents, whoever wants it.
Well, a little bit of information to inject into the conversation that I recalled, because I was a backer of This Is the Police, and I remember several months back that Team 17 was actually the publisher for the, Weepy Studios is the developer, and they had a falling out, I guess. So, maybe it's, I don't know if that's like something is wrong with Team 17 and, all these developers would want to get away from them or something like that. But I think at least This Is the Police turned out relatively well for what it was going for anyways. It wasn't a catastrophe, so maybe that's a good sign for this. But just,
I guess my fear about it is that I feel like if it's getting canceled, it's getting canceled for a reason. Like, there had to have been a reason that it wasn't going to continue on, whether it be the gameplay wasn't up to snuff or it just wasn't going down the road that they would have liked. And it actually makes me feel, I guess, scared that they brought it back. Like, I don't know. Like, usually games don't just get canceled for no reason. There's got to be a reason it was canned, and the publisher no longer wanted to work with them. So I'm curious. We'll never know, but I'm curious what that was and if that bodes well or poorly for Allison Road.
Was it actually canceled? Because the Facebook post that I see, unless the one that's actually relevant has been deleted, says, "Hi all, after a long consideration between Team 17 and ourselves, we've reached a mutual agreement to end our collaboration on publishing Allison Road under Team 17's games label. Sometimes things pan out differently than expected as game development and publishing have so many layers of complexity. We'd like to especially thank everyone for their support throughout. It has and will always be appreciated." And that to me doesn't sound like the game was ever canceled.
That sounds like
Publisher
the second post.
Yeah.
That sounds like the second post, though. Let me see if I can find the old post.
I just want to make sure it's not like video game journalism telephone, where like this is reported and then IGN goes, maybe this is canceled, and then websites pick up on that and go, Allison Road is canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so that looks like the original post, but no, because if you look at June 4th, their tweet, "Hi all, sadly Allison Road had to be canceled. Statement to come in the next few days. Thanks for your support, and very sad it came to this." And then on June 15th, they made that Facebook post that you just read out. And now, like a few days ago, they have announced that, no, I'm working on it as a one-man project. So it's not journalistic telephone, I guess. But I still sit and wonder, like, there had to have been a reason it was canned, or they decided not to work on it anymore. So I don't know. I wonder if they're going to kick up their Kickstarter again then, because they never finished the Kickstarter. They closed the Kickstarter when they got their publisher, and they were getting I think they were closing in like $150,000 initially. I don't know, man.
I wonder if that'd be a bad move though. From the whole no bad publicity is still good or whatever, but that's kind of people getting an email saying, "Oh yeah, we're back open again." That might make some of the more unaware people kind of feeling unsettled that they've been so on and off with that.
Well, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like, again, the tech demo, I guess they showed, or proof of concept, was gorgeous, but you can't really judge how the game's going to be on a 10-minute thing, because you can compact a pretty decently tense experience in 10 minutes. Now you got to take that experience and elongate it over X number of hours. Maybe they just weren't able to do it, or Team 17 said this is not panning out the way we'd like it to, and they canned it, but he's going to continue on anyways. I don't know. It's weird. I can't think of another indie game that's kind of done this on and off hot and cold dance with a publisher before, and then decided to continue.
I hear what you're saying about the momentum possibly being an issue, and especially if you consider on a larger sense, these games that are sort of these photorealistic horror games all sort of having trouble around the same moment because of this perceived backlash that is this PT, is this not PT, and all of that business. I understand that would probably create quite a bit of frustration amongst people who aren't sure whether or not they're like cursed, so to speak. Right. I know it's a little bit of a hyperbolic thing to say. I don't really think they're cursed, but it does seem like a lot of them have had troubles in development all of a sudden. And I would love to see one of them get finished, but I'd also love it if we could not label them all as PT likes either, but I've been down that road before.
That's true. I mean, Allison Road, I think out of all of them, became the most PT-like, because I think it was announced pretty shortly after the cancellation of PT, and it really looked like PT in a lot of ways. I would agree, though, not everything that is first-person horror adventure should be smacked as PT-like, especially like the new Resident Evil. But people really want PT.
I might be 150,000 years old.
You are.
But I've reached a point where I don't care about games that don't exist yet. So it's like, it's having problems in development. It's canceled. It's uncanceled. As far as that's two states that are exactly the same. It already doesn't exist, from my perspective. Its existence has not been brought into question by its, progress in development. So it's one of those things where I'm like I'm looking back and I'm like, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago when this was kickstarted, people must have been like really enamored with PT, because they almost funded this for £250,000, which is a pretty ridiculous sum of money. Not necessarily from a game development standpoint, but to get that much money based on an idea and a short tech demo. So I guess I kind of find myself being like, it should be a red flag from a consumer standpoint that development is troubled. But instead, it's like a news story because people are excited about it. I just find it weird that people are like, I'm really rooting for this because I want it to be good. And I mean, I guess you should want everything to be good, but I think it's a bad sign, probably.
That's where I stand. I feel like it's a bad sign, but if they end up going the Kickstarter route, I wonder how much money they would get, bringing up the point that this did come, I think, hot off the tails of PT's kind of recent cancellation, so they kind of capitalized on that. I wonder if they would reach the same amount of money or similar amount of money if they decided to kickstart again.
It's a bit of a dichotomy then. So they're actually trying to capitalize off a thing they also want to separate themselves from at the same time. So that internal conflict probably couldn't breed much good, I would think.
Yeah, that's true. It's weird. It's just a weird story all around. I'll be keeping an eye on it because I think the tech demo was promising, but a tech demo, like you said, doesn't really amount to anything other than this is what we kind of want to do, and here's a very short 10-minute experience.
And I like something in chat. Everyone's saying, everyone's pointing their fingers at Team 17, but maybe the dude is a dick. Yeah, I mean that's the danger that's the danger with like speculation, is that maybe Team 17 is like, hey, can you send us what you got on the game so far? And then it's like not even close to where it should be from their perspective at this point. Like you never know on a project
deadlines not
like
being
this.
met, this, that, and the other.
It goes both ways. Developer not providing enough stuff, or publisher trying to take too much control over the project, or having unrealistic expectations. And so, I mean, it's all speculation. But
yeah, I want to make that clear. I wasn't like shitting on Team 17. I was just saying that Team 17 canceling it, publishers don't typically cancel things for poor reasons, or at least in their eyes, poor reasons. And if they're canceling it, my worry is, well, why did they cancel it? There had to have been a reason.
No, you weren't shitting on Team 17. Mike was shitting on Team 17.
Way to go, Mel.
I wasn't necessarily shitting on it. I was providing evidence of a relationship with another developer that Team 17, I don't know why they severed. I think it was creative differences if I went back into the emails. But I'm just saying, by it happening here, maybe Team 17, they want to keep a, certain type of game under their umbrella. They don't want to just put games out there for the sake of it.
Unless it's Worms.
Unless it's, Worms. So I'm sure there's a good reason for it. You're not just going to not ruin, but like sever a relationship just like that for no real reason. So,
right. Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. Let's move on to the next one, which it'll probably be a short topic because I don't know what there is much to say, but it's worth mentioning.
And let's not use all of our No Man's Sky fuel. I mean, we might want to talk about it next week. And,
we might. And the week after that. And the week after that. So I saw a topic that was on Reddit that was a little overblown. It was 80%, sales dropped by 80% in week 2 for No Man's Sky. And what people don't realize is that when that happens to every big release, like week 1 is the most of the sales, and then the drop off is like within that percentage, usually in week 2. But the bigger story that came out on like Destructoid and a couple other places is that the active player base, at least on the PC version, from week 1 to week 2 dropped by 90%. So it went from a little over 200,000 people playing to about 20,000 people playing in the span of a week, which is more of a telling thing than sales drop off, because sales drop off always happens.
Yeah.
So, hooray.
Well, I don't know if I'd say hooray. I mean, that obviously sounds really bad, but what's the context for this? Like, what is a normal drop off for a game, like especially a big game a week after it comes out?
When I was reading through the Reddit thread, it can vary anywhere between like 60 to like 70 or 80-ish%. 90 is a little bit bigger than normal.
So I'm not operating under the assumption that No Man's Sky has not been very disappointing. I just want to know if this is like is this like a Titanic situation where Titanic comes out and starts small and then every week it grows? Or is this like a Suicide Squad situation where everybody's like, I've got to see it Thursday at midnight or Friday, or there's no point, and then it drops off like 80%.
Right.
So I will say, like, for context, right now there's 15,000 people playing No Man's Sky on Steam. Rainbow Six Siege has 15,400. So that gives you some context for the fact that it's down there.
Yeah.
Dead by Daylight has 16,200.
It's got a new killer though, so.
Yeah, and Rainbow Six, they've had new operators and stuff to kind of keep it fresh.
True, but that's like I would never have expected No Man's Sky to drop in concurrent players below Rainbow Six Siege, or like contemporary with Rainbow Six Siege.
It went down fast, yeah. And I think a lot of that, I mean, we've talked about it, and Nick, how much more have you played since last week? Have you played any more?
I have like 20 hours in it now, I think.
Have you beaten it?
No.
Well, you know what I mean.
That's a good question. Have I beaten? Yeah. No, I'm probably never going to, but I'm told recently that if you get to a certain point, the inventory problems lessen up severely.
Okay.
So I'm very curious to get to that point and then see if I still have some of the same gripes. Because, again, at a fundamental level, I think there is a kernel of something enjoyable in there for me. It's just so masked by so many awkward decisions with the gameplay progression that seem at odds with their general ethos about, relaxing.
Have you spoiled how it ends? Do you know how it ends?
Somebody said it in Twitter, so I sort of saw it. I don't know if it's been exactly spelled out, but I saw enough to know.
All right, so I won't say anything because I spoiled it because I'm not playing anymore because I spoiled it for myself. I wonder how much of it is, the reason people aren't playing anymore is because, the gameplay mechanics obviously are a little lackluster. It's more of a relaxing game to play.
Yeah.
But then what the ending ends up being and people getting mad about that. I'm very curious what the cause is, but I forgot to change the topic. Look, I'm working on it, guys. I apologize.
I worry a little that story as a headline could sort of be used as another way to dogpile on No Man's Sky to just, fulfill the internet's hate boner for it. Because it doesn't seem like
every week there's a new.
Why should you care if people are or not playing a game that you have decided you do or do not like, right? What's the difference? Is it just so we can feel justified in going, look, let's hate on this game more?
I really agree with that, and I was gonna say at first I was like, I do think nobody deserves to be harassed, especially for stuff that happens in the games industry. But I do think that some of the dogpiling on Hello Games is, if not a good thing, from a whoa, let's not do that ever again sort of standpoint, at least a cautionary tale, promise things that are actual concrete and are actually going to make it in the game 100%. But I do agree with what you're saying, is that there's this weird compulsion in the games industry to not just be I like this game. Instead, it's I'm going to follow the ups and downs of every game, every publisher, find out where this game fits in within the meta picture of is this hitting critical zeitgeist or commercial zeitgeist? I kind of also just don't care. And I think you're right that I guess it really shouldn't matter to people just sitting in their rooms playing video games whether or not this has a lot of concurrent players, especially if it's not multiplayer to begin with, which is part of the controversy, I guess.
Yeah. Everything's a controversy with this game. And I'm not even trying to say that it's great or that the controversy isn't partially warranted. It's just the degree that it goes on is all I'm talking about. That's all. Sorry, Mouth.
I was just going to say, what does it say actually on Steam when you go to the No Man's Sky? Does it say it's multiplayer?
I don't know if that does. I know the physical release. Did you?
Yeah, they put a sticker over it.
Yeah, so the box for the physical release, there it says single player and 7 and up, but it's actually stickered over the actual rating. And if you pull the sticker off, it says 12 and up with multiplayer.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. So
that
it's
just
not
a miscommunication in the printing department when they got that sent out. I don't know. Maybe it is, whatever.
That's
for me, it's not so much that I don't care. It's fascinating for me to watch. And I think people get up in arms, and they shouldn't get as up in arms as they do. I'm with you that people go way overboard. But they just don't I'm on the side of the people who are sick of false marketing and then leaving trailers up on the Steam page that are not representative of the game anymore because that's just not what the game is. But it's still there. And apparently those are still there. At least they were there yesterday or the day before, and they might still be there. They're the original trailers, and people just get pissed. So the only thing they can do on the internet is shout, I guess, because that's all you are allowed to do on the internet is yell at developers. So in that regard, I'm on that side of the argument. I agree with them on that end, but to the point where people are harassing and being ridiculous, I don't agree with it. But it's fascinating for me to watch this cycle. Every couple of years, there's this game that makes a million promises and they don't learn from the last game that makes a million promises, and then the consumers don't learn from the game that made a million promises the time before that, and it is a self-fulfilling.
And that's where I come down on it, where I'm more upset with the people that are acting irrational than the people that caused the problem in the first place, because you're buying into this cycle uncritically and unskeptically over and over and over again with dozens of possible bits of evidence you could use. And I'm not saying they're justified to release things and break promises. None of that's right. But I think the hatred is misplaced in all being directed at one person or one small group of people when it should be spread over most of the industry, because this is a very widespread problem.
Yeah.
So don't dogpile people. That's
it's
all.
When you're watching TV at 3 a.m. and the infomercials come on, and then they have a rotisserie that has a fat collection tray. And then they'll have a dude give a testimonial, and his before picture, he's like 400 pounds, and now he's like a male model. And he's like, yeah, I just ate, for every meal, I just ate like a whole chicken out of the rotisserie, and the weight melted right off. If you're watching that, the sane reaction is, that's obviously nonsense, right? Like that makes no sense. But with video games, I guess a lot of people must go for it, or at least say, like, it might not make me skinny, but at least I get a rotisserie out of it, which is valid. But anyway, regarding everything except for the metaphor, with video games, it's like they do this all the time. You got like Ron Popeil on TV being like, this is the last video game you're ever going to need to own. We designed every atom in this game from the ground up. That should hit a filter that is like,
well, that's bullshit.
This is idiotic.
The bullshit filter. It's just right there.
When I saw that, I was like, was there, like, people actually believe that they procedurally generated every atom in the game's universe? Like, we can't even procedurally generate our eyeballs worth of atoms in a friggin' game, let alone...
It's a scope problem. People have a really hard time finding perspective when they're already out of their depth with, oh, this game is making a procedural universe? I can't even comprehend how that's possible. So where could they be taking this that I also can't comprehend? Maybe they're doing the atoms now.
It's just been handled so wrong. I mean, we've going in circles at this point, but
we're hitting topics we've already hit, but we'll wrap it up.
Developer should have, when Sean Murray was asked these questions on interviews, he shouldn't have been like, well, the game's so big you probably won't ever see another player. He should just said, you won't see another player because that functionality doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. Reviewers and stuff like that, all these big websites, like I see Polygon and Verge, they've got such a boner for the game. You could tell they were hyped up and they're going to get a lot of views and stuff, so there's a million articles about them, and I feel like they haven't been, even afterwards, as critical of the game as they wanted, because they wanted it to be big to get views. But all these review outlets were hyping it up, and people see an article,
clicks.
and they see the headline, and this is going to be a great game. It gets people hyped up.
It's a loss of objectivity.
And then you've got the kids making death threats over a freaking video game. It's the whole cycle is broken pretty much. So
everyone at some point in this is sort of wrong, and it all adds up to a really fucked up system.
Yeah. So
and we're part of it as well. Like to recognize it within ourselves. We could have just been like, hey, No Man's Sky came out and it's not that good or well received. Yeah. But we're kind of like, even though we're saying I don't want to be part of the dogpiling, we are kind of keeping it in the,
the spotlight.
In the spotlight, exactly. And we're not keeping it in the spotlight for like, hey, like they have good intentions. It's in the spotlight for, look at how, this game that betrayed the public's trust is eating shit a little bit, at least in terms of concurrent users.
I like to believe that we're sort of writing the meta-narrative about it and hopefully discussing how the industry reacts to it more than the actual story itself. That's how I'd prefer to go about it, but granted, not everybody will see it that way.
Tune in next week for more No Man's Sky news. We'll make sure we let you know what's going on.
Patch notes, man. Probably it's going to be like a patch announcement or something next week. What is the worst case scenario No Man's Sky communication from this week? I think it's paid DLC
that's already been announced
or anything else. They announced concepts of paid DLC, but if they were like coming out October 1st, is a patch that addresses some of the concerns for things that we said would be in the game for free.
That would be, I'd say, the worst thing that they could do is take some of the patch notes from things they wish they put in and then put a $sign on them.
That would be. I'm with you. That's probably the worst thing they could do.
It's just giving me PTSD about City Skylines all over
again. They're
going
to say Godus Wars.
No. They're coming out with more DLC, right? And they're still like, all these old problems since day one. That it just makes me really bitter when they do that kind of stuff. If No Man's Sky did that, like
at least City Skylines is like, people relatively liked that game.
Yeah, I mean it's still it's fun in a lot of ways. It's just now that it doesn't really have any competition, so there's less I guess need for them to really go and fix some of the core issues, and that bothers me. But anyways,
well, this actually leads nicely into the next topic I have down, which is the SteamSpy thing. which is actually how we get a lot of our numbers and how a lot of people get their numbers. So SteamSpy, for those who don't know, it's like an aggregate site where they use profiles of public, Steam profiles to grab numbers of how many people play a certain game or own a certain game, and then they extrapolate like a certain number to kind of like take a guess as to how many people may have bought a game or are playing a game. And there's always like a plus and minus thing. Developers have come out saying that the site is accurate but not precise, which is different, very important distinction. And some developers had even reached out to SteamSpy and said, take our games off of your website, including Techland, which did Dead Island.
Yeah.
And Paradox was one of those companies as well. And SteamSpy has decided to make the maneuver to say, we're not going to take requests anymore. We're just going to put all that information out there.
Hell yeah.
I think it's a good sign. I think there's varying reports as to why developers don't want their games on the site, because it can affect, I guess, sales or pitching to publishers, because like, hey, this game didn't sell as well as we can lie about that it did, or we would have liked it to, and we can't hide the numbers because they're all out in public, or at least an approximation of the numbers are out there. And they're saying, no more. We're not going to take developer requests to remove the games. We're just going to put everything out. So that's interesting. I know, Nick, you had brought up the topic as well. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
I love it. I think that they shouldn't have any reason to be able to get their information taken down. Because why would they ever do it if it was in their favor, right? What would ever be the advantage to taking down good information that benefits them?
Well, for Paradox, the idea was that, they're going to put their stock on the Swedish stock market. So I think it benefited them from like a business standpoint to be able to be like, hey, don't look at SteamSpy. Like, we're actually going to have to release our financial documents anyway. So, and it worked out really well for them because they had Tencent buy like 50% of the company outright or something like that for, dozens of millions of dollars. So I think the concern is that it's misinformation that could affect them from a business standpoint.
All right, that's fair. I didn't ever think about it from that perspective.
Neither did I.
I was more thinking about it just of like, well, everyone's on an even playing field now. If you got something bad going on, everyone can tell, and that's good because more information. So, seems like the WikiLeaks of Steam info to me, if I was to be very hyperbolic.
WikiLeaks.
It's a whole own can of worms.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think it's good that the information is out there. I just think that as long as that information is couched in context, it actually makes sense. Like, what I've heard from developers is that SteamSpy, like Matt has said, is accurate but not precise. So you can't just open it up and then be like, $30 times, 4,500 users. This is how much money they've made. Like, that can lead to some dangerous situations, I think, depending on how the information is used. If we're out here being like, oh, and we've done this before, Deus Ex, $60 times 107 or 186,000 active users, they've made like $6 million on this game so far. Maybe that's accurate and maybe it's not. But I can understand that as a developer, it must be frustrating to have someone like in the ballpark talking about like drawing conclusions about how your situation based on information that may or may not be extremely accurate.
Right.
But I mean, for the most part, I'm glad that it's out there. But I am also sort of like, I don't know why it exists. But except for curiosity's sake. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, humans are curious and all that, but really, the bottom line, I don't feel it's really going to change your enjoyment of a game knowing how much is spent developing it or not. And similarly, like, I don't know, people always make these, comparisons too. Oh, I paid $600 for a phone, oh, I hear it only costs like $200 to make it kind of thing. But also people forget too, development and design and R&D and all this kind of stuff. There's all these other costs that often don't get factored into it as well. So it's like, you might think that they're raking you over the coals for charging $60 for a AAA game, but a lot of times the reason they're charging is because they have hundreds of people working on them, and there's all these licensing fees and all this other crap. So like, just Yeah, like Ryan said, it's interesting that it's there, I guess, but I still don't see any relevance to it.
Well, it's good for us, like for as far as podcasting and stuff. Like, it's useful for us to be able to like, how many people own this game? We can talk about the topic and stuff. I think for the average user, though, you're right that it doesn't freaking matter. Like, no one's gonna look. They're not gonna care. It's more on like people within the industry using it, either talking points or publishers looking at numbers and stuff. If for some reason the developer didn't give them numbers directly. Which I don't know how that works. You'd think you do, but maybe you don't.
Or, I don't know. I think the other thing that I've heard from, like, biz dev people in the industry is, like, if someone's pitching a business case, they'll be like, okay, we're going to make a roguelite, and it's, like, we're going to sell, let's say we sell, like, half as many copies as Nuclear Throne. Then they go to SteamSpy, take half that number, and multiply it by, like, the actual price of the game, and be like, so this is how much revenue we expect to make, which I imagine is probably, like, a gross overestimate.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to things like Humble Bundles and Steam sales and gift copies, that's more specific to Nuclear Throne in that issue. But, like, people buying them on key resellers, and then, you know, not everybody buying them is from a place where the price is X. You know, if you're buying it in Poland or something like that, the prices tend to be deflated, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I think information is power, and it's good that it's out there, and it does give you some idea. Like, you can look at this and be like, okay, Deus Ex has 190,000 owners estimated. Oclos has 4,000. Like, that's, I'm assuming Deus Ex Mankind Divided is bigger than Oclos, but considering they came out on, like, basically the same day, it gives you some idea of the difference in magnitude between them. But I guess it's dangerous to try to take that number and be like, let's draw some, like, serious conclusions and base action based on it, is my thinking.
I agree with that. And in my perfect world, I guess it would hopefully sway both ways in that, yes, you should have to put your info out there, but yes, you should also have the proper context given in any situation that someone would want that information. And, you know, it's like Fox was saying earlier with the, like what I was kind of talking about with No Man's Sky, essentially, this information, it just sort of, it's out there. Everybody should hear it. And I kind of lost my train of thought, to be honest.
you were on the road.
I was on a train, and then you got derailed.
You got off the hype train.
I think it's important. Ryan made the distinction, though. True, like consumers probably, really isn't any need for other than curiosity, or you're generally interested in the economics of the situation. If you're a publisher or somebody who's looking to get into funding games and stuff like that, yeah, it's actually very useful. I mean, I'm thinking exactly of Dragon's Den. You go on Dragon's Den. They
excuse me, Shark Tank?
Excuse me. You go on and they're going to ask, how many of this product have you sold? Or if you haven't sold it, what's the market like in general? It's like, okay, well, roguelikes of this kind of nature typically sell between this and that, and so on and so forth. So it is very useful in that regard, I suppose. But you just don't want to see people kind of misusing and misinterpreting the information that I guess don't reside within that, kind of profession.
Right. Either way, I do think overall, for us, or at least I think it's good to have those numbers readily available. And we'll see if that's, I know they were talking, the owner of the site was talking like, I don't think they can sue us, so hopefully they won't. So I'll be interested to see if like any developers end up taking like a legal step to get their info taken down off of the site. I don't know if they will. I don't know if it's that important to them, but it was a small talking point from the website owner. I guess we'll see.
I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
The information regarding the No Man's Sky stuff earlier, how it was just sort of out there, and then it would like not really affect anybody's actual decision-making process if you're actually just playing it. Like, I'd be a bit of a hypocrite if I tried to say that from both sides, right? It shouldn't matter what this data is if you're just an end user. So really, like you said, it is just for people that are analyzing this stuff, and in which case it should have the proper context. Correct. So you got to kind of follow it through the whole chain there.
Information with context.
Yeah.
That is the important bit. Cool. Well, let's move on to something that I know I put on the docket, and I forgot to copy paste it over to my proper docket, which was PlayStation Now. PlayStation Now is coming to Is that what it's called? PlayStation Now?
Pokemon
new
Go.
Sony Initiative X.
Yeah, basically the service that allows you to play PS3 games via like live streaming directly to the PS3 is coming to
Vita.
PC. Whatever. PlayStation Vita is coming to the PC. Actually, no, this is huge. The fact that you will be able to stream like old PS3 games that you may not own and be able to play them on your PC is going to be big and is possibly a step towards like more cross-platform friendly, like playing nice with one another, which is kind of awesome because there are a lot of PS3 games that I never played that I would love to play.
You're not gonna play them.
That's probably true,
Let's
but there are
be
still
honest.
games that I would like to play. Like the statement holds true.
The next Honey Pop is exclusive to PS4.
I would have to get it at that point. Worth the investment for episode 1 alone. But I mean, I think it bears mentioning just because, you know, we did talk about how Rocket League, you know, the cross-platform capabilities are nice. This is like another step in that direction in a way, where now we can see PlayStation or Sony is playing nice with PCs, and that can allow for all kinds of fun things. I don't know. I think that's pretty cool. What about you guys?
I'm curious about the infrastructure. Have they outlined exactly how it works?
I don't
Well,
think
it's
so.
a cloud gaming thing, right? Like it's not like you download Shadow of the Colossus
Yeah, I
for
know,
yourself or something like that. It's just like that.
You get some app that's a portal to the game on their server. Yeah.
Right.
The website that I went to read the story played like the loudest auto playing ad I've ever heard, and completely short circuited my train of thought.
Gotcha.
But thanks, CNET. Either way, like I mean, who is it that we went to was with me at PAX when they had like the wireless screen that was there with cloud gaming, and then people were trying to play like Saints Row, and it was super laggy, and like everyone was like, I can't do anything with this. Like it doesn't. That's what I worry about. Is like if it was PS3 games coming out on PC, that would be cool. Ish, even though I'm probably not interested, but like PS3 games that you have to go through the PlayStation Now service to play, I don't necessarily trust it to give you a good experience. But I mean, I suppose we'll see. But there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, I just don't care. Like they're like coming this fall to PC from PlayStation Now. Borderlands 2. Who's gonna buy Borderlands 2?
Yeah.
And then like or get Borderlands 2 on PlayStation Now and then play it on their PC with like the input lag. It doesn't make sense to me.
Just get it on PC.
Yeah, it's like
already
$2 in the Steam sale that happens 20 times a year.
Listen, I agree with you, but I think the bigger story here is like, hey, more cross-platform compatibility is always a good thing.
It is, except they've sort of stopped supporting the Vita, which sort of tells me they don't really have their heart in it already. So why would they overextend themselves into more directions they might fail at?
But Vita's been around for how many years now? Maybe that's just a sign that they're thinking of the next.
Yeah, they should probably announce something about that, because I kind of get the impression they just kind of aren't doing anything else with it for now. I would love it if they'd make an official Sony PS3 emulator and sell it for $100 for PC and let you just play your discs in your computer.
That would be sweet.
I know you wouldn't buy it, but I didn't say it's for you.
He's 150,000 years old.
So
He's-
many years old.
I'm saying that that's not. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. I just said I wish it did.
It's funny. So I think it definitely started kind of happening around the Xbox 360 and the PS3. You started to see this kind of divergence from PC. You know, they're trying to make consoles the all-in-one entertainment system, and then you got the Xbox One and the PS4. They've kind of handled that pretty well, but it seems like they're going back. Yeah, Xbox, Microsoft is making all their games, right? They're going to be playable on whatever. They're making modular Xbox 360, which is basically, or not 360, Xbox One, whatever. It's basically going back to being a computer again, so it can keep up with PCs. So I think that's Sony's just trying to do tit for tat on this situation. They're keeping up with how Microsoft is going. They see that PCs are still relevant, and that's what they have to do. So.
Well, there you go. All right. I thought I think it's cool, but I'm in the minority. That's
I
fine.
think this is one of those things where, and maybe I'm coming a little over the top here, But like we look at the industry from the outside and we put like a check mark in the Sony column and we're like, good job, Sony. This is something I will never do, but that was a nice thing that you did. And I'm like, it's a good thing, I guess. But I mean, I don't want to play like, Resistance on my PC. I just don't care.
You don't understand what kind of classic that is. That would.
But it's the kind of thing where people are like, hey, sweet, like a new restaurant opened up in my city. I'll never eat there, but like I'm glad it exists. I understand the belief, but I don't know if it provides much benefit to many people, especially because it's not out of the goodness of your heart, and you do have to subscribe to the PlayStation Now service for a monthly fee. True. It's not like it's lumped in with. I don't think it's lumped in with like PS Plus or anything.
Which is going up $10 in a month.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, who is the target audience for this?
Kind of nobody. Like, who's still after playing PS3 games that hard in the first place? It's great that they're making them available, but why not just have them downloadable on PS4 or, support putting the discs in? Like, I mean, they do that, but like, why is that not just the initiative? Just get more games up to be available, or give us a way that we can redeem our discs for download codes or something. Because they've done that in Japan with PSP. You used to be able to trade in discs and get codes to download them.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe it's just more of a tech test. Older games typically have, more minimal requirements and stuff like that. So if they're planning on expanding it to newer games in the future, because again, when you're talking in the PC realm, there's a pretty wide variance in terms of specs. So that's why you've got their servers, right? They know the hardware, and they'll know generally how many people are going to be playing that game at a given time, and they can allocate resources. Consoles typically are a fixed thing, right? The games are developed. They know exactly what the specs are, whereas when they do it for PC, you've got minimum and you've got recommended and all that stuff. So by shifting it onto their servers and letting it be played on the PC, they kind of take away the hardware element. Obviously, there's the internet connection and speeds and all that stuff is a completely different issue. But I think maybe that's what they're trying to get into the PC market in that way.
That's dominated by their competitor. That's so weird.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, that is weird. Now I put a little bit more thought into it. Initially, my reaction was like, nice, Sony, good job, more cross-platform. But now I'm like, I don't understand the service.
Just wait until that app that they try to give you will be universally blocked across Windows 10.
If it was PS4 games, I get it. When someone's like, oh, sweet, like, maybe Shadow of the Colossus is a good example. Like, oh, sweet,
Bear would sign up just for that.
Ratchet and Clank Galactic Booty or whatever the one is, like the 8th Ratchet and Clank game is finally available on PS3. Now I'll finally be able to go back and play it, because that was the thing that was stopping me. I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, It's like when you give somebody's like, oh, I've always wanted to like build my own furniture, and then you give them like a set of tools for Christmas, and then you're like, well, see you in 6 months, motherfucker. I want my dinette set. You better be able to tell me all about Ratchet and Clank Galactic Booty if you're excited about this.
I've never played Galactic Booty, all right? But it's interesting. I guess I'll keep an eye on it. I'll be curious to see how many people actually end up using it. I'm very curious how many people actually already use it on the PS4, but I can't imagine maybe it's not that many. Regardless, we'll keep an eye on it, and if it makes a splash, we'll let you know.
Ratchet and Clank Future Quest for Booty. That's what it's called.
Yeah, that's the name.
There was a booty in there somewhere.
They all have names like that.
It's got a 77.8 aggregate rating on Game Rankings, man. I've been waiting 8 years for the most convenient opportunity for me to play Ratchet and Clank Future Quest for Booty.
And it's not now. I can play it on my PC. God.
Now I can finally have a good excuse to do it.
Moving on. All right, now let's get to some games announcements. The big one, Dark Souls 3's first DLC has been announced. It will be released on October 25th. I forgot the title of it because I didn't write it down because I am Ashen something. Dark Souls 3 DLC.
Ashes of Ariandel.
All right, yep, Ashes of Ariandel.
Ashes of my Grundle.
It will have a whole new area that'll be pretty PvP focused, a lot of new gear, and the trailer has some interesting lore bits for those who are interested in the lore, like myself. And for those who don't, well, the fact that it'll be PvP heavy apparently should also excite you. Ryan, are you excited for it? Have you even beaten... You did beat Dark Souls 3, right?
Yes.
Didn't beat the secret boss, though.
Depending on your perspective, I suppose.
Well,
got him.
What's the other perspective of yes or no?
I defeated every boss in the game except for the Nameless King, got the ending, could start New Game Plus. You know, I didn't pick up some Estus shards either. I guess I haven't finished the game.
Basically hasn't even started yet.
Listen,
Is the
man,
difference between have you finished your meal, as in are you full, or have you finished your meal, is there no food left? I'm full, but there is food left on the plate.
Good answer.
Sorry, I was changing the topic. Listen,
no
man,
problem.
the Lost King, in my opinion, out of all the secret bosses,
That's not his name. His name
or
is
the
Nameless
Nameless King.
King.
Sorry, the
Spoilers.
Nameless King is he's the most lore important secret boss.
Who cares?
Well, if
Brian
you
doesn't
like
play
lore.
games for the fun of it, Mathis. When are you going to learn this?
I should have realized that on Isaac episode 2173.
Hey, that'd be career suicide in 2014.
NL jokes, good times. I'm excited for it. What about you, Nick? I know you beat it.
Yeah, I'll play it. I had heard at first that it was going to be PvP focused, and I was a bit dismayed at that, but then I found it wasn't true. So yeah, I'm in. Sure.
If you haven't gotten 100 Pale Tongues and gotten to the top of the leaderboards for the Blue Brotherhood, then you haven't actually finished the game. So
That's true, and I haven't.
Well, wait, Nick, have you beaten the Nameless King?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the only one, Ryan. Well, Malf,
Oh.
did you even play Dark Souls 3? Or?
No, yeah, I'm still finishing Dark Souls 1.
Right on pace to finish it.
Hey,
by
Mathis, how was
2020.
Dark Souls 2, buddy?
I didn't like Dark Souls 2, though. It wasn't because it was too hard and I gave up. It's because
Wait.
I didn't enjoy it.
That means I'm the only one here that's beaten all the Dark Souls games.
It is.
And
You are-
Bloodborne.
I have
didn't
not
beat
beaten
Demon Souls, though.
I haven't beaten Bloodborne or Demon Souls. So.
I didn't do the Bloodborne DLC, so I guess I'm out on that one. Or the Dark Souls 2 DLC, for that matter. But I will play Dark Souls 3.
I am not excited at all about the Dark Souls 3 DLC. And I think I am at Assassin's Creed Revelations point in the Dark Souls franchise right now.
Really?
I need, it's too much of a good thing right now.
Okay.
I want, 5 years with no From Software Dark Souls game. Was Dark Souls 3 bad? No, Dark Souls 3 was great. And it was better than Dark Souls 2, I am willing to admit. But I'm done with it. I'm not saying they shouldn't come out with DLC. They should come out with DLC and make it an awesome finale, and then do something else for a few years, and then come back and be new technology, we can make the game we wanted to make back then instead of just making a fourth Dark Souls game, and I'm going to be stoked.
Well, they did say a few months ago this Dark Souls 3 was the last.
They went back and forth a bunch of times.
Oh, have they? Okay.
Yeah,
It's the last one, but
Until-
it also
But
sold.
the money's
a ton.
nice.
Yeah, exactly. We also
think it
sold
was-
a ton.
We're going to leave this open in case our publisher forces us to make more Dark Souls.
I don't even know. From Software may be done with Dark Souls. I hope that they are for a little bit at least. I hope that there's a couple, at least 2 or 3 years where there's no Souls-ish game. Because, I don't want to be I'm the canary in the coal mine, but I think people will stop caring. And I think
Well,
I'm just
I agree
the
with that.
first stop.
Well, they said they wanted to do something that's kind of more future-based, did they not? Like a sci-fi,
did.
similar mechanics, just a different universe, I guess.
Well, I guess that the question then to you, Ryan, is: are you more tired of the mechanics, or are you more tired of the atmosphere and world?
As minute, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that's respectful of the series, because I really do like it, and Dark Souls 1 is probably one of my top 10 favorite games of all time. But with that being said, every single Dark Souls game has been very, very similar. It's been basically impossible to recreate that experience of being in an unfamiliar world and trying to hack out how the hell you're going to survive here. Now, you're I don't know what that enemy is, but he's running at me quickly. Let me access my stored knowledge of the 100 fast enemies I fought in the Dark Souls franchise to figure out what to do about it, right? There's not that many surprises anymore, and it's very hard to recreate that feeling of being I'm going down into the graveyard 100 times because I think this is where I'm supposed to go, and then it turns out you're actually supposed to go up the stairs to undead, but like that feeling of uneasiness and
because you've had you can't chase the high. You're not going to get that same feeling
And that's
again.
what they've done.
And everybody,
correct, yeah.
everybody that's going to Dark Souls 3, having played the earlier ones, is basically being dropped in at like power level over 9,000. Like they're already basically a Dark Souls 3 expert.
Yes.
You're still gonna die because you've got to learn the geometry and the
attack patterns of bosses.
the attack patterns, and
but struggle with a terrible camera on some boss fights.
You know what to level, and you know roughly when you need to roll to get invincibility frames, and I think it just gives you you have such a leg up. I'd really love for them to just do something completely different.
So it sounds like mechanics is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean the Dark Souls mechanics are great, but I'm kind of like, I don't need more of that. I think I would be almost as happy to just play through Dark Souls 1 again as I would be to play through a Dark Souls 4 if it's as good as Dark Souls 3.
Because it's like you said, they're kind of the same with a nice shiny coat of paint, I guess.
Yeah, sort of. And I have a predilection, which is maybe not that common, of like, I don't mind doing the same thing 100,000 times in the same game.
Especially,
if you want to...
Yeah.
A new game with the same mechanics, not interested, apparently. But if you want, I'll just play the same game 1,000 times. That's what I'm good at.
I guess especially if you're not a huge fan of like the world and the lore. I mean, the game can definitely feel very samey. One of the big things that kept me going through Dark Souls 3, as hard as I did, is I found the story really interesting because in a way, this Dark Souls 3 could very well end Dark. Like they could be done with Dark Souls with the way they framed the story and the amount of like fan service that was packed into Dark Souls 3. They could be done with it. If you're not interested in the story, I can see how Dark Souls 3 could get boring pretty quick. Just because I've played it before.
I enjoyed it, but I have no attachment to it. Like I do think it's a good game. If I do like a year-end list, there's a good chance it would be in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. But I don't really have like nostalgic feelings about it. And maybe part of that is, already blown that out on Dark Souls 1. But I don't know. I just at some point I'm like, you've just done it too many times. Like like superhero movie fatigue where you're like,
I don't actually. I'm not sick of them.
Oh, well,
I
I'm like,
have it, don't
this
worry.
movie's like good, but in order for me to really like a superhero movie, it actually has to be incredible now. Because there's been like 10 a month that do like adequately. So I just feel like Dark Souls is kind of like that, where like I don't know how a great Dark Souls 4 is like less important to me than a decent attempt at something different, at least for now.
I mostly agree with Ryan on this, actually, and I would much rather that they take a few months or years or whatever it takes for them to get their head on straight for the right attempt at whatever they're going to do next. As much as I'm a massive fan of Dark Souls, I think it is a bit too formulaic. And at this point now, they're really riding on this concept that what makes the game great is this pattern of combat boss, really hardcore boss, weird item, combat, get lost for a sec. Like, it's all sort of the same loop. And what I think really made Dark Souls special was actually not just the combat. And yes, the combat complemented the game really well, but it was the feeling of this world. And it was the feeling of how the atmosphere came together and the feeling that it was larger than you and getting lost in that world and trying to understand what you're even doing. The fact that you didn't even have any expectations, everything was subverting you everywhere you went. And it was all clever feeling because it was all new.
Yeah.
And they didn't really approach the sequels in a way that felt clever enough to me to differentiate them from the original in a way that felt meaningful beyond just the combat is fun. And that is true. The premise that the combat is fun and the bosses are exciting is enough to get it by, but I don't think it's enough to really totally move the formula forward in a way that feels like real progression. So that's where I landed on 3. I thought it was fun, I enjoyed it, and I will play the DLC, but I don't feel like it competed in the same realm as Dark Souls 1 because they didn't approach it from a totally new angle. So that's what I think they need to do. And even Bloodborne, honestly, they went further in the direction of combat being the main focus rather than atmosphere and exploration. And yes, there was good atmosphere, and yes, there was some exploration, but largely the game was still mostly linear. Most of the games have been mostly linear. So that's where I think the series faltered a little bit. And if they spent more time working on the level design than the big crazy boss that they're going to feature in the trailers, I think I would have more fun with it, personally.
Do you think a lot of the problem is that they're very much competing with themselves? They don't really have anybody in the same genre, quote unquote, trying to push them into new areas because the only competitors they've had so far have failed. There was that, I can't remember the name of it, Lords of the Fallen, I think it was. Yeah, Lords of the Fallen came out. I remember preview videos of it being like, it's going to be like Dark Souls, but like colorful and different. And there's like, these are the things that it's going to end up doing different, but it ended up being like shit. And I can't think of any other games that have kind of been similar to Dark Souls that have come out that have really challenged, I guess, what would you call it? Like a super hard third-person action, like genre, like whatever.
To be fair, like every other game that's come out in the last 3 years has said it's the Dark Souls of whatever. So,
which means nothing really.
Yeah. Necropolis was one, right?
Yeah,
I guess that was
sort of.
Salt and Sanctuary was another that like kind of pushed it. I guess Neo is the only one that I can think of that's coming out that is going to be like, I guess, similar in the mechanics, but. Yeah, I mean, I know somebody in chat said they don't think competition is the problem here, but without competition, you have no reason to push forward. I think of Madden a lot when it comes to not having competition, so no need to push their genre forward because they're the only ones that exist, and they're good. The game is good, but it doesn't do anything new, and every game that comes out doesn't really feel that much different than the last one.
I think they were struggling with where exactly they wanted to land with their gameplay identity. Is this more of something they want to push towards the mainstream where the action is the focus, or is this more about the lore and the mystery, in which case that would take it away from the mainstream? And whenever you're chasing big dollars, obviously it's a little difficult to justify moving out of the mainstream when you see yourself poised for that very easily. And everyone wants to advertise you and everyone wants to talk about you. How do you deny that mainstream appeal?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where they ended up landing. And I'm not saying they did it to such an extent that they like sold out or something. It just did feel a little bit like they were headed in that direction of the extreme action game that they wanted everybody to believe it was.
I just think like it's harder to impress people with the same thing, even if it's like really good.
Yeah.
Over and over. Like it's like look at like the iPhone. When the iPhone was first announced and first came out, people were like, this is amazing. It's changed the paradigm of phones. Like, I didn't know my phone could ever be this. And then, we're here like 3 years later and we're like, oh, so the camera's only going to be like 1 megapixel better? Like, yeah, okay, it's a better iPhone, but so what?
That's
like,
true.
At some point, novelty does count for something. And, I think there is such a thing as too much of a good thing and diminishing returns. So, I mean, I people in the chat are like, they already said this was going to be the last one. Yeah, but like...
Yeah, but like, here's $1 million, like $10 million. Last one.
Talks cheap, right? Like, maybe this is the last one. How long is like the statute of limitations?
Or maybe this is the last one Miyazaki will be a part of, but
there's
a development team that'll work on it separately, like Dark Souls 2.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I hope that I hope that they do something interesting that is not Dark Souls related next.
I'd be game for this weird cyberpunk thing that they kind of floated out there as an idea. I'd be interested in that for sure.
Someone in chat said people still buy Mario Kart. Yeah, but there's been like 10 Mario Karts
over the course. Yeah, since like the N64 era.
There's been 4 Dark Souls, basically. I'm going to count Bloodborne in there. There's been 4 Dark Souls in 5 years. Like, that's crazy talk.
SNES era, I'm sorry. I forgot there was an SNES one. Yeah, that's true. Well, the expansion, regardless, I think we'll all, for the most part, play it. Except for Malf, maybe in like 20 years when he gets to it, he'll play it. But
I'll just get PS Now or whatever.
That's true, yeah. You can just get
your PC.
PS Go. Dark Souls 3 Ashes of Ariandel DLC coming out October 25th. I'm excited for it. Moving on to another expansion that I don't particularly care about, but Ryan might, Nick might, maybe Malf, I don't know, is the Endless Legend expansion. Anybody here play Endless Legend?
I haven't tried it yet.
Wait, that's the Endless Dungeon of the Endless? Yeah.
Software, 4X.
Yeah, I actually, because that was a game, I played that years ago when it was still kind of, I guess, earlier alpha or beta. I really enjoyed it, actually. I'm kind of sad I didn't spend more time with it.
You're all wrong. I'm just going to let you stop. Endless Legend is the Civilization strategy one.
What do you mean I'm all wrong? That's exactly what I said.
Did you? I thought you said Endless Dungeon of the Endless.
That's what I said.
Dungeon Endless is the publisher. Like, they published...
I don't know what's
Studios developed and published the Endless series, Endless Space, Dungeon of the Endless.
I thought you were talking about Dungeon of the Endless. I'm like, no, it's Endless Legend. My mistake. I misunderstood. Continue, Mouth. I'm sorry, my friend.
No, I was just saying I enjoyed what time I did spend with Dungeon of the Endless. I thought it was a pretty nice balance of that kind of what do you call it? Fortress defense / roguelike.
Fox, we're not talking about Dungeon of the Endless.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying.
He said continue with it. I'm confused now.
Okay, so Endless Legend, for those who don't know, is like a Civ strategy, Civilization-style strategy game by those developers. And they announced a new expansion that will add naval warfare, sea fortresses, and a whole new major faction. That's the game I was talking about.
I don't even know this game at all.
Endless Legend? All right. Ryan, have you played Endless Legend?
Yeah, I played a couple hours of Endless Legend. I think it was 2014.
Yeah, it came out a few years ago.
It was like, that game is really well respected for people who are fans of the 4X genre. And the studio, Amplitude, is like really good. Fox is talking about Dungeon the Endless and Endless Space as well. They've always done like their own unique spin on these genres. I found it like a little too minutia driven, I guess, for me personally. Like, as compared to
coming from a guy who enjoyed Europa Universalis.
Well, yeah, it took me like 100 hours to do anything in Europa Universalis, though. This, I only spent like 2 hours with it, and it was like EU4, but it was like the tutorial was like, you know, you can design your own units and like build them up that way. And I was like, that's too much. I want to make like a phalanx and send them to conquer, you know, the Mongolians, basically. So I didn't really get that into it, but I heard that it was really well respected. So, I mean, an expansion for it is good news, and the 4X genre is kicking off, you know, between Endless Legend and its DLC and Stellaris and Civ 6 coming out. You know, it's a good time to be a fan of 4X, I suppose. And Amplitude Studios recently got bought by Sega, so it's interesting to see. I think this might be the first project they end up releasing from them, so it seems like starting them off on the right foot.
I'm excited for it. I put a little bit of time into it as well, but I didn't play it when any of the expansions came out. But apparently there's like, 3 or 4 expansions that exist already, and apparently it did a ton of additional stuff and really kind of fleshed out the base game. And I wanted to dive back into it, but I will. This is exciting for me because I think expanding into, you know, naval stuff adds a whole layer of strategy.
I'm gonna expand into your navel.
Don't ever say that again. Cool. Well, I'm excited for it. We'll move on to something Nick can talk about. Nick finally beat AM2R, and finally. I'm excited to know how that was like, because I watched a review of it actually.
Yeah, so it was really good. It was really, really good actually. There's some problems with it that are actually because there are problems with Metroid 2. Like, almost nothing about this, I feel like, was made worse by the fan remake version of it. And I would go so far as to say it might be one of the best actual Metroid games that exists if you include it in the group of the official ones. So from a Metroid fan, I would go so far as to say highly, highly recommended. If you care at all about Metroid, you should go check out AM2R. If you don't know, it's a remake of Metroid 2, which was only on Game Boy, and it was not a great game. I think most people would go so far as to say the biggest problem with it largely was the map was very, very small in that Samus had to be 2 tiles high, and the Game Boy screen resolution is not very large to begin with.
Right.
So you end up with a character that's disproportionately tall for the amount of screen size you have to work with, and it just makes the whole game really awkward. And not only that, but Metroid is a game that's known for being obtuse in the first place, and when you can hardly tell the difference between what area you're in, it makes it very difficult to really figure out what the hell you're doing. So they went and took that formula, applied it to a whole new coat of paint, a new engine. The developer worked on this thing for years and years, and finally came out with it.
Too, right?
As far as what?
Didn't he add a couple of like custom bosses and stuff as well?
Yeah, actually that is true. I didn't think about it because I never finished the Game Boy version because it was just not a great game. I was quite bored by it. But yeah, I think the robot boss and the hunter boss, there was maybe even a couple of extra areas that he expanded on, but it felt like a really complete, solid game. In fact, there's, like I said, very little that I would criticize over it that wasn't just a fault of the original game. So yeah, go play it. Like I said, nothing really bad to say about it.
That's awesome. And Nintendo hasn't taken it down.
Well, they said it can't exist, but it's kind of up anyway.
Once it's on the internet, it's out there, kind of thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't have much trouble finding it, and it's even been updated since they told it to come down. So, go look for it. It won't be too hard to find.
Yeah, go check it out. AM2R, find it wherever you can. And that brings us to N++, which is another game I have not played. I played N, which was a Flash game.
Mathis, what did you play this week?
Deus Ex, pretty much exclusively. And I've been playing through Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, so... I know. Judge Mathis thing, don't worry.
Better than Dota, Austin.
Fair enough, yeah. No Rob, no Austin.
No Dota talk. N++, so this is like the third game in the N series. It is a momentum-based, like, precision platformer, I guess. And Ryan kind of liked it. I don't know shit about it. I saw your video and I saw the comments, and that's all I know about it. So take the floor, Ryan. Hit me with N++.
Yeah, N++, it's like Super Meat Boy. Although if you're a turbo nerd about the genre, you're going to be like, it's not Super Meat Boy. It's more momentum-based. And
more
you have to
momentum-based
learn
and physics-based and a little bit more minimalistic, and you collect gold, which actually increases a timer.
Yeah, it's strange in the sense that it's not just about getting to the end of the level. You have like a time limit. The time limit is extended by gold that you pick up. Usually some of that gold is easy and is on your route, and some of it is going to require some more difficult jumps. Oh, look who's playing
I just saw
Dota 2 right now. Austin just signed on.
Oh, no.
He's watching the podcast.
I think the game is good. Here is my central concerns in the video after playing for like almost 2 hours were like, it seems a little easy to finish the levels. You know, to 100% the levels requires a little bit of extra chutzpah, but to just finish the levels has been easy. And apparently this was an unfair criticism because the game gets very hard, but in an hour and 40 minutes, I didn't encounter a level that had really taxed me. There was one, like, as Mouth maybe got to, there's one that's like a half pipe that took me a while to get to like the switch to be able to open the door. And then there's one that's a circle that might have taken like eight or nine times. But like for the most part, I haven't found it that difficult to start with, but apparently, you know, I don't want to be dismissive, but further into the game, it becomes substantially difficult. And there are thousands and thousands of levels. But, I mean, what annoyed me was a gentle difficulty curve that kind of assumes very little, I guess, acumen in these games. And I kind of feel like maybe it starts you off a little slow. If it gets more engaging, you know, 5 or 6 hours in, that's fine. But I still found it a little easy in the early game.
I was watching BizSnap play this when it came out first on PS4, and he was like 500 levels into it or something, and he was having a lot of trouble with it because, from what I could tell, it gets to be one of the hardest platformers out there.
18 quintillion levels.
You may have to play it for a very long time to get to that part, but there's also a completionist element where you try to basically do the levels as perfectly as possible. And, you know, there's several different metrics that you can gauge yourself on. So the difficulty complaint, I think it depends how much you play it or what you try to do.
Yeah, I think it could be personal preference, but for me, I typically am not huge into those sort of N plus games. Super Meat Boy is not something I ever felt driven to finish. But you know, I put in some time into N++, and save for one level, which I was just being really dumb and didn't realize what I had to do at first. I was getting through them all first try. A couple of them I just retried as I go. I could clearly do that a little bit better, sort of thing. But after a while, I was just like, all right, that's it. Like, I think maybe the difficulty curve, if they had shifted it a bit more, so it started to challenge you a little bit sooner, maybe that would have been enough to keep me playing and be like, all right, one more. But after getting through a couple dozen just on first try, it's just like, But that's,
would you recommend it to like platforming fans in general, or
how much does it cost?
It's $12. Like, it's pretty cheap mechanically, and it's robust in terms of content. Like, I can't dispute that.
Yeah.
Wait, I kind of what happened to me, I think, is what you're getting at here as well, is that basically I got bored before the game had a chance to really hook me. Like, I just found myself being like, yeah, I can just run to the end of the level in all these levels. And this is my own mistake. I did the whole tutorial like an idiot. And apparently that's not something you have to do if you've ever used an analog stick and an A button before. So I will take full responsibility for that. I also think that from a user interface perspective, there is some work that should be done there, because like the way that it was structured, I actually didn't know that was a tutorial. Like, it was called intro. I don't know. Is intro tutorial? Is that optional? Like, I have no idea. Optional? Well, it is optional.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know. Intro to me doesn't necessarily scream optional.
If you slap something intro, I'm gonna play it because I assume it's in, like the beginning of the game.
And then like there's two different ways to play through the episodes. You can play through them horizontally, which is like a gentle learning curve, or you can play through them vertically, which is a steeper learning curve. And people like let me know in the comments. I talked to the developer and he let me know that afterwards as well. And I was like, I get it, but also like, how am I supposed to know
It wasn't
that?
intuitive.
Yeah, that's not. If it's not, I mean, it's not handholdy. If it's not spelled out for you, you're not gonna know.
When you start the game, there's like a wall of text that's just like, welcome to N++, and then like, here's the optimal way to like mechanically get through the game. You need to like master all these mechanics. I really like, it's a no nonsense, like mechanics driven platformer. And I would have liked a little bit more nonsense. Like as much as I don't care that much about like the story of Super Meat Boy, that game had a lot of style. And I think I missed that a little bit in N++, but that might be something where your mileage may vary as well. If you really like the visual style. And I think that if you put in the time to get great at it and don't find yourself getting bogged down by early game levels, like maybe underestimate, where you're starting from, then, you could really get to some good stuff. You could get to some levels like Super Meat Boy where you're like, every single jump is like perfect here and I'm maintaining all my momentum and getting to the exit in a really good time, getting the bandage, et cetera, et cetera. In N++, I found myself being like, I missed like 1 gold. Who cares? I missed one. It's like the difference between trials of being like, I'm going to beat this level faultless, and like, it's easy enough to get to the exit. I felt twice.
Is it because the levels move too slow? Like, one of the things that I liked about Super Meat Boy is that the levels are relatively quickly, which gives you the incentive to like perfect a level. You're like, this didn't take me too long. It's quick, and I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. Is N++ like the reason you don't care about perfecting the levels because of the mechanics, or because it's like levels are too sluggish or slow for like a platformer like that? You know what I'm asking? Do you understand like the wording here?
I feel some people play, it's kind of like, I'm going to take the path of least resistance if I'm given the option a lot of times. So that's where, Ryan's saying, just like a lot of time you can run to the exit. Of course, they've got coins kind of up in this corner, that corner. The end game for people who really are perfectionists and whatnot, obviously you want to have the most time by the time you get to the door. So you're going to go back and find the optimal way of collecting all the coins or as many of the coins or whatever the optimal path is in that way. So it's like, I don't know, but I feel like because of the lack of narrative, you don't care as much. It's not hooking me in. Each room is just like, stylistically it's kind of interesting in some way, but after a while it's just...
Is it... Well, I'm just trying to think now. One of the things, I guess maybe if there were a ton of collectibles in each level of Meat Boy, do you think you feel the same way? Like, fuck that last... I don't know.
In a way, I actually do. Like, I feel like if every level of Meat Boy was like there's 100 pieces of bacon to pick up in every single one, then if you only get 91 of them, I think you're less likely to be like, I'm going to go back and get the other 9 than you are when there's just one bandage that's in like a super difficult place.
Yeah.
This is why I couldn't get into Dust Force, actually, for the same reason. There were just too many things to do too perfectly, and it sort of took a little bit of the player autonomy away. I have to wonder, though, with N+, and I still haven't played N++ yet. I will be playing it, though. And I have played N+, and the original N. This is a game that's been in sort of stages of development as an idea for about 10 years now, and have to wonder if there's a stage where eventually it becomes almost over-designed, in that they know what they want, and then they just iterate so much that you feel like you need to produce every possible permutation of game concept. And what that ends up resulting in is sort of gameplay clutter that doesn't necessarily make the game more enjoyable or meaningful, but pads out an experience to seem more robust. So that's where that difficulty curve might get a little muddled. But I also understand where they're coming from, where they want to make it approachable from different perspectives for people with different skill levels. I just don't know if presenting it in the form of hundreds and hundreds of levels is necessarily the right incentive. I'd rather do really well at fewer levels than do marginally well at hundreds of them, because it feels like you're making a bigger difference then. It feels like you're actually making more progress. Yeah. So I guess it's just a fundamental dynamic about how you want to approach game design. And in their case, having done it for so many years now, is this really the end result of all that work, or is this just a pile of different ideas put together? I don't know. I hope it's a little of both, maybe.
I feel like it's not well curated. Like, maybe it's two different development philosophies, but like Super Meat Boy is 200 levels, right? Or 240 levels.
It's amazingly versatile depending on how much you want to get into it, because there's different points you can bow out at. So it depends.
It's not 240 because like the sixth world only has 5 levels or whatever. But anyway, it's somewhere in like the 150 to 200 range, I think, if you count the Dark World
and
levels.
They're very short.
They're extremely short. I probably have played 150 to 200 levels in N++ already, and I can remember like 3 of them. I can remember half pipe level, I can remember circle level, and then like level that introduced me to boost pads. Like those are the 3 levels that I remember. And I feel like you could, again, for me personally, some people might enjoy there being like 1,000 levels, even if they aren't necessarily particularly clever, at least as they struck me. But like I found myself being like, I don't need all these levels. Like these levels are just an excuse to have more game to some extent. I would have preferred like, you know, clever level, surprisingly tongue twistery to say. But then as opposed, and maybe cut the number of levels down by like, you know, not a factor of 9 or something like that. Go from like 1,000 levels to 100, as opposed to just like, we got a lot of levels. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter to me, but.
You know, I have to, that's like something I kind of respect about the whole, you know, curated experience. And it's reminding me of a slight tangent here, but there's a burger place near my work that they have all these, you know, different types of burgers with some pretty interesting ingredients and stuff. It's not like your typical burgers, but on most of them, they have a thing that says like, please don't add toppings and stuff. You can get a normal cheeseburger and get your pickles and your lettuce, whatever the heck you want on it, but they have their signature burgers and they don't want people to change it. So it's like, this is exactly what we want you to experience. This is how it should be. Maybe you don't like that, but like, if you don't, get the fuck out of here, basically. And you know, it kind of takes some guts, especially as a restaurant, to do that sort of thing. But I feel standing your ground that's I don't know, it's pretty cool, and that makes me respect you know, Super Meat Boy a little bit more because of that. Whereas this is just like, here's a different shape of a room we've probably generated with some kind of engine. We'll put the coins here and there, and then let people find whatever the best route is, whatever the best route is.
Very, very careful in the stepping up of the difficulty curve in Super Meat Boy, and having a really nice balance of teaching you new mechanics and also iterating on them in a way that feels like you're really getting somewhere. And the curve is just really balanced. And I think the difference is here we're dealing with just a ton of levels where it's just sort of like, well, you kind of get how running and jumping works. We're just going to play around with that for a while and see what sticks. And then we're going to add missiles and we're going to add electric people. I mean, that's the way it was in N+ anyway. And I had fun with it because the mechanics feel good and the physics feel good. And there's something gratifying about nailing those jumps with that sense of weight as you move across. But if you are fighting those physics and you don't enjoy that feeling, it's going to feel stressful pretty quickly when all you're doing is kind of similar permutations of similar concepts.
I feel like in defense of the game, a lot of the comments were like, NL, like you don't understand what you're talking about. And like the reviews are pretty overwhelmingly positive. Right. Some people are saying like, this is the best platformer I've ever played. It strikes me, maybe this is one of those things where like, if for a certain subset of the population, this is the game that they've been waiting for like 15 years. For someone who's like, you know, Johnny come lately to the franchise, I did find myself being like, I feel like Meat Boy just does it better. Like, I know that it's hard to judge it because it was 6 years ago and I have a lot of nostalgia associated with it, but I was like, this is not as clever as Super Meat Boy. That doesn't mean it's bad. Like, I still had a decent time playing it, but I was like, it really highlighted for me a lot of the things that Super Meat Boy does right. Like, for example, only having 20 levels per world and then having like a difficulty spike and, you know, having some style and a little bit of a story that, even though the narrative doesn't really matter, at least it's kind of clever and, you know, it's got some cute stuff going on with it. This is like, we've built this ninja mechanic and then we've built, for what is all intents and purposes, infinite levels that you can play it in. It's cool. I mean, it's like a platform sandbox, but it's not the kind of thing I'm looking for in a game like this, I guess.
I mean, before we leave topic, I'm curious. I don't know if anybody knows, but from N+ to N++, have they changed anything mechanically, or is N++ more like a level pack?
That would have to be Nick, honestly, because
Yeah,
I played N++
didn't
in like 2008 for 2 hours. Like I'm pretty unfamiliar. It's been a long time.
the little bit I saw looked quite similar, but like I said, I didn't play it, so I don't know yet. And I hope I didn't come across as being like wholly negative, because I actually am looking forward to playing this, and I think I'll probably enjoy it. I was just sort of hearing what Ryan was saying and understanding like where he was coming from with that. And I can kind of identify that line of thinking too, and I just don't know if I'll fall into it or not. But I think I probably won't, because I liked N. So,
Well, I'm actually curious what your thoughts are on it when you do get around to playing it, and I'm curious if it is like a level pack or if there's different mechanics to really call it a sequel. But
I think it's like, you're like, how did this game take like 8 years to make? Is like going to a restaurant and being like, why is this soup like $100? Like the chef is in the kitchen like shaving garlic with a razor blade, and you imported like saffron from the most particular genius of saffron. Like to the unrefined palate such as myself, it just tastes like soup. And this game just feels like, a decent platformer.
Right.
But for the kind of person who's really honed in on it, maybe this is exactly what they've been looking for.
yeah, makes sense. Well, N++ on Steam right now. You said $12.99?
Yes,
For
$11.99.
$11.99. If that's your cup of tea, apparently there's a bajillion levels you can go check out. Last game we're going to be talking about today is Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. It is the sequel to Human Revolution, which was 2011, I believe, and takes place a few years after that, after the events of Human Revolution. I think, Malf, have you put any time into it yet?
No, I downloaded it overnight, so I'm probably going to check it out this weekend.
So me and Ryan don't want to put any time into it. Ryan, how far into the game are you so far?
Okay, so I beat the intro mission.
Yep.
And then I went to Prague, and I did I got my augmentations back.
Yep.
And I did 3 side missions. So I'm 4 hours into the game, basically.
Have you used the subway yet?
Yeah, several times.
Okay, so you and I are probably similar in where
The
we
number
are.
one thing on the subway is that you should install this game on your solid state hard drive.
I was going to bring it up. The load times are fucking awful in this game. They're so
Dude,
long.
On my hard drive, to go on the subway from one part of the city to another is 2 to 3 minutes. So put this on your solid state drive.
Yep.
My hard drive is also fucked. It's probably dying, but
Some of us don't have 60 terabyte solid states, Ryan. We can't.
I'm just
afford
saying,
it.
if you can put it on your solid state
Yeah.
drive, I would recommend it.
I don't have the room.
What are your thoughts on it so far?
I actually really like it, and I think it fills a niche in the market that has not existed for a while. Maybe I'm ignorant of it, but I was when was the last time I was excited about a AAA game?
Yeah.
It's Dark Souls 3 maybe, or
Right.
am I completely forgetting something that came out in between there? I actually might be. But
The World of Warcraft expansion.
I feel like there's been lots of really good small games that I was kind of hankering for a Hollywood blockbuster, and it's fitting the bill right now. I'm having a good time with it. I'm not going to play more because I want to leave it open just in case I could do it on a subscriber stream later or something
Okay.
like that.
Gotcha.
But I've had a good time, and I appreciate that it's a stealth game, but it's extremely large. It's a stealth RPG.
Yeah.
And coming off of Dishonored, which is also a great game,
I just came off Dishonored too, so yeah.
but
I'm with
I
you.
don't know about you, I beat it in 8 hours. So I'm thankful to have a game where maybe I can get to a level of being decent at stealth and still have the ability to practice that for a long time, instead of just finally I understand how to blink and then now it's over.
Well,
right?
let's just be clear. You beat Dishonored so quickly because you played it like a murderous madman.
That's not true. I got low chaos, man.
You got low chaos?
Yeah, and it was easy.
Well, is it because you didn't kill the main targets? Did you save them
No,
mostly?
I definitely killed less than 10 people in the whole game.
All right. I thought you just played it like a murderous psychopath.
No way, man.
I'm coming at it from the same angle, actually. I just beat and played through Dishonored 1 plus 1 of the DLCs. I haven't played Brigmore Witches yet. And coming into it, maybe the mechanics are really solid. If you played Human Revolution, it's really mechanically very, very similar. They pull the whole Metroid, your character gets injured and he loses all of his augmentations. Now you have to earn all those augmentations back. Plus, here's like a ton of new ones that you can play with, that you can enjoy. And they kind of add this overclocking feature where some of the augmentations will use more power than others. So you have to like disable some that you're not using to maintain the power to use the other ones. Otherwise, your HUD gets all glitchy and stuff, which is cool. But the stealth mechanics, like you can play it guns toting, first person shooter, run in and kill everybody. But I honestly think it is meant to be played as a stealth game. It heavily incentivizes going through it quietly. Lethal or non-lethal, I haven't really seen the game push you in one way or another. I've been playing non-lethal personally, but the powers are really cool. It looks gorgeous. One weird critique I have of it is like standing still, the game is really pretty, but once like the faces start to move, you're like, something's not right there. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I don't know. Like, I've seen
crazy?
people complaining about it, but I thought it is animated pretty well. But you know, it's the PC, so
Yeah.
some people it looks fine. Some people, like for a while, all of my facial models had like white dots on like the vertices.
That was from an AUG before you lost it.
Chickenpox.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense then.
And
I
you
was
can
like,
get
where
that
these
back.
dots come from?
Yeah, so because
Like
he's
a
like
face
reading
scanner?
the face, huh?
It's like a face scanner, like it was mapping the points on their face so he could read it against the
you can
database.
get like a social
Cassie,
augmenter
CASS.
that allows you to like pick up on facial cues, and then you know you get different dialogue options.
It's
based
really
on...
cool because I picked that up pretty quickly because I'm all about like the options, and I really enjoy like when it comes into use. Like it goes into first person, it like scans their face, a little thing pops on the side, it shows like it'll quickly tell you like are they sweating, are they not sweating, their heartbeat, and then like what kind of personality they are as they continue to talk. It'll be like they're more of a beta or an alpha or an omega. And then certain special options.
That's not a thing, I don't think.
Omega?
I don't know.
It has it, and then depending on how leveled that is, it'll give you special speech options that you can talk to them with to more appeal to their personality type. Like that's cool. I like that a lot. Or you can just spec into muscle and guns and just kill everybody.
I will say, like, as I do want to play through the whole game. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to do so on the subscriber stream at some point, but. I think Adam Jensen might be just like the most boring character in the world.
He was boring in Human Revolution.
He's got here's his character traits. He never asked for this. He has cool sunglasses that would make you look like a fucking idiot in real life. He's got a stupid beard, and that's it. And then apart from that,
his
just
trench
like,
coat is pretty cool.
He's got a long trench coat. That's it. Yeah.
Somebody said on Reddit that they should do a live action and get Keanu Reeves to play him.
That would work really
He
well.
looks
Would work.
like Keanu Reeves. I don't dispute that. But like Adam Jensen is so boring.
He is a boring dude.
He has no. I guess it's so that you can put yourself. You can define his moral compass. But at least all the dialogue that I've seen so far is like, you know, hey, Adam, how do you feel about this terrible thing? I don't like it. I think people should be good. And you're like, oh, whoa, that's a bold statement of characterization.
Sounds like somebody I know about video games.
It's weird because it's a little hypocritical of me because I really like Geralt from Witcher 3 and he's similar.
Yeah.
But it works for him, but it doesn't really work for Adam Jensen. I don't know why.
There's a difference, like, you know, there's, I think, a subtlety to it. One, like, you don't have to be super talkative or say a lot of things, right? That's kind of creates more of a more contemplative character and stuff like that. But it really, what defines it is what you do choose to say when you say stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if you're saying dumb shit, it's like, all right, well, whatever.
I mechanically, like, as far as shooting goes, it feels all right. Like, I'm not a huge... I prefer just to sneak around. Like, for the most part, I've gotten through most of my missions without shooting more than, like, 2 tranquilized shots and being able to get through, and the game does support that. What's blown me away about the game so far, even more so than Human Revolution, is the insane amount of options per mission. And it's taken me a little while to train myself to think vertically in this game and not just think what's in front of me and what are my options. Like, for one of the missions, I could have gone into the sewer system and accessed the building through the sewer instead of going through like the front door or like a window or going onto the roof and going that way. Like, there are an incredible amount of ways to tackle each mission. That's really kind of the standout of this game. It's really giving the player complete and utter control over each mission, saying you do it how you want to, and being able to use some of your powers to give you more access. Like there's an ability that allow you to dash really quickly. It's almost like a blink.
Yeah.
You can use that to
dash.
get to places that are too high to jump to, which will then open up new ways to complete each mission. It's really cool. And be able to like go up to a panel that has a code and be like, all right, I can hack this. I can go look for the code on somebody. I can look for like a PDA that has the code on it, and just say like that one little simple thing has like 3 different ways you can crack it open. Is neat. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's like you almost have to. This is a very like hoity-toity way to explain it, but I think if you want to get the most out of it, you have to have like some self-discipline, because there are some times where I'm like, I don't have the code for this. Maybe I'll just shoot everybody in the head, and then I gotta be like, no, I obviously could. I'm behind cover, just poke out, shoot him in the head, no problem, right? But yeah, it's definitely it's more fun if you play it as almost like a detective game, and then like I don't know, have you done the Palisades Bank thing yet?
No, I have not.
It's a side mission. I think it's a side mission at least. And basically you go to a bank and you have to get some dirt on the CEO. Okay. And I did the whole thing stealthily, like go through the vents, you hack into somebody's office, you get a key card, you use that key card to go up in the elevator to the floor that you're not supposed to go to. And then at the end, there was just like one dude. And I was like, come on, man. Like, just look in the other direction for like 2 seconds, and he didn't. So I had to shoot him in the head with a tranq rifle. I was like, if I run out of tranquilizers, this is a real problem. But there is a get out of jail free card, but in the end, I think that it's actually very good. And I'm hesitating to think of like what else has come out in the recent past. I recognize we're sort of in the doldrums before like the holiday season.
Yeah.
But either way, what has come out in the recent past that is like as intriguing as this for me from a AAA standpoint? And I don't think there's much. So I found myself even more positive than I think the critical reception has been so far.
Can I ask about the setting? Because I found the setting in the last game to be a bit bland. Not bad, but just like generic sci-fi and warehouses and factory kind of stuff. Is this sort of along the same lines?
I mean, it's the same world. It takes place in daytime, so it's a lot more color than like the last one. It's very, very pretty. Uh-huh. I think the theme and like the story going on is more interesting than the first one. The idea of like the events of the first game have created the segregation between augmented people and like natural people, and that permeates like throughout the whole game. You'll get randomly stopped by cops to check your papers and stuff like that. But I mean, it's still very much like a dystopian cyberpunk world with the same kind of architecture, I guess, of the first one. But
I think the setting is relatively generic, honestly. It feels like it's city.
Yeah.
Is it still Detroit? The previous one was Detroit.
No, you're in Prague in this one for the most part. Far anyway.
The very first Deus Ex game, the first setting you see is you're on by the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And like that's actually really cool. And they've never really made a really recognizable place again that I can think of beyond that one time. It's always just kind of city and back alleys and grimy cyberpunk world. And
this time it's in the day, so you got a blue sky.
Yeah, I do prefer daytime if you're going to go that route. It's a little bit more interesting, at least.
I think it's like the first Deus Ex game during the day.
One thing I'm learning about stealth games, and maybe a reason that I was never good at them when I was younger, is I like overestimated how intelligent the AI is.
I was going to bring that up.
If these people acted like real people, Sam Fisher would get shot in the head in like 2 seconds, right? Yeah. There's actually early on in Deus Ex, again, I don't know if it's a side mission in Mankind Divided, just to be specific. There's a point where you have to go through a checkpoint, but it's being run by a corrupt cop, and you need to get like a new permit. So the permit's going to cost you like way more money than you could conceivably have by that point of the game. So you got to sneak in order to get it, or at least that's what I did. So the dude is like, hey, it's going to cost you like 1,200 credits. And I'm like, fuck that. And I went behind him, or not even behind him, but in his field of view, climbed on a van, and then got on like a first-story ledge and just walked right through his field of view until I was behind him, and then dropped behind him, and then it was like, entering restricted zone. Like,
it's that whole idea. So the game, for those who don't know, the game has 2 like types of zones. There's like the normal zone on the minimap, and then red zones that are considered restricted zones. As long as you're in an allowed zone, enemy AI won't aggro you. But the minute you cross over into a restricted zone, that's when they get like aggressive. But it doesn't matter, like Ryan said, you can just jump up on the thing right in front of me, like, you're not gonna let me in? All right. Boing! And you just jump up and then just walk over him, and then you're in the restricted zone, and he's just like, I don't know where he went.
Yeah, like if you were watching this dude, like the normal human field of vision has some verticality associated with it. You do like, you're not gonna let me in? All right, and then you just be like, I see you.
Yeah,
I see you. You're on the van. You're right in front of me. You're just 6 feet higher than you used to be. But then you kind of have to in your head realize the limitations of the AI and work with that.
Or exploit the shit out of it.
If you think about it too much, you're like, well, this is stupid.
The amount of times in this game too that there's been like a couple dudes patrolling with each other, and then I'll knock one out and drag him away, and the guy just keeps patrolling, and he's like, hey, he must have, well, Bob's gone. Oh well, and he just keeps moving around, doesn't care.
They really need to develop some proper middleware for enemy AI so we can like move past as an industry this stage of like AI being just brain dead, because it's so important to games like this to have these emergent moments, right? And you never get them.
I think that's like intentional in a lot of ways, though. I think they're trying to make it so it's not like we know how people behave and like what kind of stuff would actually set us off, but would a lot of people really want to play that game where it's just so unrelentingly realistic? You never get past the first level.
I think there's a happy medium that can be had, though. For instance, I know other games have done it, but I can't think about it. Maybe it was Metal Gear. Being like fully seen by the enemy, right? And being completely caught and they're shooting at you, but you get away and you hide long enough for the alarm to go back and they go back to normal. They should stay at an alert stage. There shouldn't be a timer that ticks down and be like, all right, they'll be done looking for you in 60 seconds or whatever, which is what happens in Mankind Divided. There's a timer that ticks down and you're like, all right, they leave me alone. Because that pulls me out a little bit where like we were just having a firefight. Like there is somebody here after something clearly, but after a minute you're like, he must have left. Back to my patrol. We'll bury Bob in the morning. like that. Like you just having like, okay, somebody's here. Let's say on a guarded alert status where maybe the AI is a little bit more awake than it normally would be. That's cool. I do agree though that they have to make certain concessions to give the player the power fantasy or the stealth fantasy that they want to have. But the cat showed up.
I agree with you. Like, I don't know. I think the current philosophy of designing stealth games relies on AI who, if you put them in the real world, would have like a single-digit IQ. Like, right. You think that can see like an unconscious body and then be like, wow, that's weird. But still like mostly just go back to business as usual. Like, I think we are a little bit past like, you see a pile of bodies and they go, oh, must just be the wind, but not much. But it requires like a different kind of design if you're going to have realistic AI that actually like irreversibly changes into like hostile mode that aggressively hunts you down and stuff like that. And I don't know. I kind of see it like almost like the physics in a platform game. Like the AI is to some extent arbitrary. As long as the actual act of accomplishing the goal is satisfying, then there's value in it. Like to be stealthy in that Palisades mission in Mankind Divided did require some trial and error, and like the AI was stupid, but they were still smart enough to find me on a couple of occasions. So right. I don't think it necessarily takes too much away from the experience that the AI is not necessarily, one-to-one realistic or even close, to be honest.
I guess I'm coming from the perspective of like, this is a power fantasy, and that's the point. It's supposed to be you're in an elevated position of ability over the things you're fighting against. But if you're fighting against things that are marginally brain dead, do you really feel like you need that power? You could be a normal person and still have an advantage just by having intellect. So, like, isn't it sort of taking away from the power fantasy of not letting you assert that you're actually at least at a base level of human competency? Do you know what I'm trying to say? I mean,
I do. I know. I do know what you're trying to say. I guess, like, so far, like, we're making fun because the AI can be really dumb for certain aspects, but they're not, like, completely, like, dead in the inside. They just do, like, being able to jump in front of a dude. Like, all you had to do, in my opinion, to fix that small thing, being like, you won't let me in or I'm just going to jump over you. Like, make the jumping point around the corner of a building. Like, that's where you start accessing it, is like out of his sight on the building. You can get up that way. Little things like that could just, fix the idea of like, all right, I'm just going to jump on your car in front of you and you're just not going to stop me. So whatever.
Some of my favorite things about stealth games are like in the new Hitman, where you do something really weird in front of them and they're like, what are you doing? Like, they call you out for it.
Yeah.
And I love those little awkward moments of like, they're calling you out for being in a video game and they're the ones in reality.
Right.
I love that. I want to see those emergent moments happen all the time, because you do weird shit in video games that doesn't make any sense in reality. And everyone just pretends it makes sense.
Like you're in when you go to your home base, like in front of everybody, like somebody gets up from their computer and you're like, I'm just going to hack into their computer in front of like 13 people. Yeah. No one's going to stop me. It's fine. Still a great game, though. I'm still really, really liking it. I loved Human Revolution, and I'm really enjoying Mankind Divided. It's more Human Revolution with just more options and more toys to play with. So you can check it out right now, $60 on Steam, and or check it out on the console, whatever you want to do. It's good stuff. And that will wrap up our topic section. We will be moving over now to everybody's favorite segment, Ask Roundtable. Today's question comes from Twitter, because I didn't have access to the email. And the tweet that we got was, I gotta find it. There it is. It's coming from Ajax. Ajax asks, do games have as much narrative value and substance as a novel or a play? What is your opinion on that? That, I'm gonna throw right to Nick, right out the gate.
All right. As much narrative substance as a novel or a play. Well, I think to say anything definitive would be to sort of negate the point of the medium, which is to say that every individual medium has its own strengths and weaknesses. None of them function in a vacuum. I wouldn't say that games are intrinsically better than any other medium, but they do have their own unique delivery mechanism. And that added element of allowing you to role play as the character from a perspective that you may never have the accessibility to portray, does actually make it a meaningfully different experience. And there are situations like some of these narrative-based games that I've been playing, like Soma, The Beginner's Guide, those sort of games Inside, well, to some degree, where it's such a suspended reality that it totally lets you empathize in a new emotional way that you can't even relate to without the premise of being the person who's at the focus of this thing that's built around you. Like, you're in space and you're the single fixed point that space is reflecting upon. Whereas in most of those other mediums, you're externally viewing into something else. And you could argue that, you're viewing into something here too, but you're focused on something that's focused on you, right? And that's sort of different than these other narratives most of the time. I mean, you can write a book from a first person perspective as well, but it doesn't happen that often. And granted, games don't have to take that approach either. But it is sort of something a bit unique about it. The interactive element, the way that it's dynamic, the way that it adapts to things that you may or may not do, those are elements that are not contained in any other medium quite the same way. And I think that's what makes it meaningful, and I think it contains nearly infinite potential, and why I'm so excited about it as a medium in general, and why I've chosen to spend so much time focused on it, because I personally think it's one of the coolest things that we've got going as a civilization, the ability to go off into these realms and just have fun with it and see where it takes us.
That, you might say, it defines us as a civilization, what makes us human.
Video games?
Yeah. Storytelling.
You think so?
Yeah. And food. Poutine mostly, but food.
I agree. I think video games do have as much narrative value as novels or plays. And I'm basically just going to echo what you said, is that it's just a different type of narrative, and the ability to, even with some games, form that narrative is unique to this medium alone. I guess you had choose your own adventure books, kind of, but it's a little different than like a movie or just a straightforward novel, and that alone makes it something that I am more likely to play. Like, I will gladly play a video game over going out to see a movie, unless it's Deadpool matinee, than most other things.
I mean, that was good though. So
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
I think, there's validity and justification for all forms of storytelling, because they're, they can deliver the same story, but it's being represented in a different way in each case. A book, you have the words, and you're able to kind of paint the picture and the tone a lot of the times in your head, and it still offers a some interpretation. You could have a simple painting, right? So you're looking at it and you can kind of interpret it even more. There are no words, so you're forming a lot of the story and what it means to you. Movies, I really like movies mostly because I hate holding a book. And
Get a Kindle, man.
I can get up and do other stuff, but it offers, more of a direct, like, this is what the director or the storyteller, this is kind of what they mean by the story. Of course, there can still be elements where they say, like, oh, well, what happens at the end of the movie? Does this person really live or die, or, different things like that. But and you can keep going on. Music does the same thing, same thing in that it's different, and same for video games. You get to play it, you get to choose your actions within this world, this story that's created. And I think it'll, no form of storytelling is ever, as far as I could assume, become obsolete, right? They're not going to say, well, we're not going to do books anymore because video games are just so good at telling stories, or we're not going to do movies anymore because of video games, so on and so forth. And I think they enrich,
complement each other.
Yeah. And to say like it has more or less narrative value is, if anybody trying to really define that, that's,
Well, there are some ways, in fact, I would say a novel might even be superior in some formats. And what I mean by that is you're free to read into these lines of dialogue or the way that things are written, and to come up with your own, using your own imagination, come up with your own little stories to fill in the blanks of things. And when you're literally looking at a video game, you get to see literally everything that exists in front of you.
Yeah.
And one thing I kind of liked about retro games is that when they had really minimalistic pixel art that wasn't able to render things naturalistically, you had some of the same crossover there where you could fill in some of the blanks with your own ideas. And now we're at the point, though, where everything tries to be as naturalistic as possible most of the time, and you're kind of just, what you see is what you get. And I do kind of like a little of both in a little of both.
Just pull a Zack Snyder and have like a million dream sequences, in which case you don't know what reality is.
Yeah.
True. Ryan, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the problem right now is that, it's really easy to look at games writing and be like, games writing is a cut below the way that it is in movies or novels or plays and TV especially right now. I think that's pretty fair. The difference is, like, I feel like a lot of AAA game writing is like, let's take the plot of a movie and then make it 25 times longer.
Yeah.
That fucking sucks.
Yeah,
like, have you ever watched a movie and been like, that was like half an hour too long?
Yeah.
Well, how about do that, but 40 times longer? Like, it's a little ridiculous. So I think it takes a special kind of talent to make something that's effective in that kind of, like, in that amount of time. Like, I guess it is more like a book.
Sometimes they don't succeed.
Yeah, I mean, The Witcher 3, from what I hear at least, is a really good example of a game that, like, continues its world building and lore throughout the entire game, even though it's super long. So it's definitely the exception rather than the rule, though. And I think when games are at their worst, it's really when they're like, this is like a bad movie script, and then also cover-based shooting in between it.
David Cage
agree.
Games.
I think it was an era that we went through of this romanticizing of the idea of games being movies. We thought that was like the platonic ideal, that games should aspire to be more like movies.
The Order
And I think
1886.
probably couldn't have been much more wrong about that. Once games find their own identity, that's where they succeed. And it's only in recent years now that we've really sort of taken on that mantle, that's even a thing people want to aspire to do.
Shit. All right, cool. We're back. Everybody's slightly darkened, but I don't know why.
Stories suck.
I don't know what happened there. That's annoying. All right, well, Nick, continue your point, or does that it?
No, I'm good.
All right, sorry, man. I just panic moment. All right, well, now it'll be thank you for the question, Ajax. If you want to send questions, send it over to roundtableyt@gmail.com. Next time somebody has access to the email, we'll pull them from there. Also, thank you to everybody who tweeted at me, especially people who tweeted at me "fuck Mathis?" as the question. Very valuable. Moving on. Oh, everybody's bright again. Beautiful. Everybody's favorite section after everybody's favorite segment. It is Nick's Weird Games, and we got a suggestion from one of the tweets that we're going to use, and it is from Lou Johnson. he suggests Safety Dance as the song. I did give Ryan a nice heads up beforehand.
Yeah, I didn't prepare for this one though, because I'm not as familiar with the safety dance. But it would be like, do you have the game already, Nick?
Oh yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Like, you could play if you want to. You can play Nick's weird game, provided you have an emulator that might rhyme with MAME.
There you go.
The game came out in Asia, and it's from 2002. It was published by Koei, who then became Tecmo, and it got a 4.2. Nick's Weird Games. Nick's Weird Games. Everybody pull out your dicks. The end.
That good
Everybody
ending
pull
there.
out your dicks.
All right, chat, hide away. Let's do this.
All right. Today we're doing a PC game for Nick's Weird Games.
Shit!
Can you
What?
imagine a reality where this is even possible? Not only is it a PC game, but it's a real-time tactics game.
What does real-time
What?
tactics mean?
What,
XCOM?
this isn't the Nick that I know.
Nick, stop! This is too confusing.
You're blowing my mind, Nick. What?
You're hoping it never sells.
All right, so this game is from 1998.
Okay.
I want Ryan to get it like right now.
Deus Ex Invisible War.
I think that was 2002.
Excuse me, that's from 2004.
4.
I just remember shooting the basketball in the room you start in, and it bounced like that. It's like,
That's Overwatch.
no,
Right, yep, that is Overwatch. You are correct.
no.
Shoot the basketball and then Reaper goes die.
I'm going to shoot your basketballs if you don't give us some clues.
All right, you want some clues? Developed by, you may know these guys, Bungie.
Oh, is it?
Published by Bungie.
Because of the M, right?
We've got Oni or Ani Marathon.
No. Marathon.
Body
Marathon.
Harvest.
Nope.
It's not Marathon. Oh, shit.
Oh, it was the
it's
original Halo.
A tactics game.
Yeah, I thought Marathon was. No, maybe I don't know.
This is
Is it Myth?
Myth.
Is it Myth 2?
No.
Quest for Booty?
So it's a myth,
Myth
game.
3.
It's Myth. It's Myth something.
It's 2.
Mythbusters.
All right, I was just hoping you'd give me the full name, but yeah, it's Myth 2. You got it.
Good
Myth,
job.
Myth
Good job.
Hunters.
Where is it here? Myth. Give me the Myth game.
You got the big
I have it
box?
I got a... No, it's not a big. It's just a CD.
Booty.
Little box. Myth 2 Soul Blighter.
Oh, yeah.
A Bungie game that I'm actually quite a big fan of. I played a lot of this back in the day, and I think it's actually a fantastic game. And I'm not huge on strategy or tactics games, but this one did something for me for, I don't know, whatever reason. I think it's because there was no resource management. You just kind of get an army and you just go nuts with it. So it's more about tactical planning, sending people in certain places, certain times. A little like the Total War games, actually, but with a fantasy sort of Warcrafty theme.
That's cool.
Great game. If you haven't played it, I'd recommend check out Myth.
PC games, man. You're gonna throw. That's how you're gonna win this.
Play it
got
on
it.
PlayStation Go.
The
Oh,
first-
you know what Skype did? It readjusted my camera to 4:3
Yay.
for the rest with you guys.
I got
see
2 points.
Zex Deeks has it. There may be one ahead of you, but you may be the one.
Zex Deeks.
Zex Deeks.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like you're the winner today. Congratulations.
Congrats, Zex Deeks. Thank you guys for guessing. I don't know where I was going with that one, but that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for joining us for today's Roundtable Live. We almost made it through tech free. Next week, there may be one. It'll be me and Nick that are staying here, so if we can round up enough people and we can get another one going. Otherwise, everybody else is going to be at PAX West enjoying themselves. Thanks to all our Patreon supporters, whoever you are. I don't have the name list in front of us, but thank you. It actually means a lot. You guys allow us to do what we do. We appreciate it a great deal. And go check us out on iTunes. Rate us 5 stars. Head up to our Reddit thread, reddit.com/r/roundtable. There's got to be a better way of doing that. But check that out. Our Twitter. Follow us on Twitter for all kinds of good stuff. And yeah, Bear's in chat, and he's linking stuff. So go check those out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hey, everybody.